Hello and welcome to Reggie'sTake.com podcast number 22. You've all heard of Batman and even Batgirl, but have you heard of Batwoman? Probably not, and there's a good reason why. We'll tell you what Batwoman is all about. Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin, the men behind such movies as Independence Day, Godzilla, The Patriot, and the soon-to-be-out Independence Day Resurgence, will be rebooting one of their own movies. But which one? Marvel Studios has released official synopsis for two of its upcoming movies. Plus, Warner Brothers has also released a synopsis for Zach Snyder's Justice League movie. Speaking of the Justice League movie, Zach Snyder has given a recent interview, and we will tell you what he had to say about the upcoming Justice League movie and the fan reaction to Batman v Superman. Ben Affleck has given an update on his solo Batman movie and what he wants to be right before he even begins filming. William Dafoe will be joining the ever-growing cast in the Justice League movie, which I think we may have told you once before, but find out who he will be playing. And finally, Hollywood lost a young and talented actor in a tragic and senseless accident in Anton Yelchin. We'll take a brief look at his young career and share what some of his Star Trek co-stars had to say about Yelchin on social media. Joining me on this very packed edition is the CEO and CFO of the True Believers and reader of fan letters to comic books everywhere, my guest and honorary/permanent co-host of Reggie's Take podcast, James.
Hello.
Welcome. How are you?
Pretty good. How are you doing, Reggie?
All right. Weather hot enough for you?
It's a little too hot, honestly.
I'm
not,
kind of like Robin Williams, a little crotch pot cooking.
A little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. I gotta say, like when I was a kid, up till I was about, a little kid up until about 22 years old, even like I loved summer, just loved it. And starting around 23, I was like, maybe I don't like summer as much. And every year I hate it more and more.
I think as a kid, you don't care how hot it is. You just want to be outside. You want to play with your friends. And as an adult, it's like it gets above a certain temperature and you're like, I ain't moving.
Well, even in college, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna go swimming, I'm gonna go do this and this, and go drive in, go like whatever I was doing back then. I don't know, but like now it's like, God, I gotta fix the dang air conditioner.
The life of an adult.
Yeah, I guess.
I sent you a link several weeks back, and we talked about this at the end of my last podcast that we'd probably touch on this. And it's a little unknown movie called The Wild World of Batwoman.
Yeah, you sent me that. Actually, what you sent me was Mystery Science Theater.
Right, because when it was initially released, the guy behind this movie, he wrote it in the height of the Batman TV series in the 60s. And when he announced in the trade papers that he was doing this movie, Warner Brothers instantly sued him over this.
Well, what's crazy is, and you may not have even known this, there is an actual Batwoman in DC Comics.
Really?
Yeah, and she's a very minor character. In the 50s, they came out with Batgirl first. Then there was Ace the Bat Hound, Batwoman, Batmite, like all these Bat people. They came out essentially with Batgirl and Batwoman to make Batman and Robin seem less gay. Because in the 50s, there was that book, and I forget what the book was called, but there was that book that basically accused Batman and Robin of being gay, which isn't too much of a stretch. But at the same time, back then, being gay was very taboo. And this book was one of those books that was like, if you let your children read comics, read Batman, they're going to be influenced by this gay culture. And it was pretty ridiculous. But so DC created these characters to be like, no, look, see, they've got girls. They're not gay. See, beautiful women. Yeah, that they never kiss. And the problem with Batgirl, or Batwoman, I actually forget her name. It's something Kane. I forget her name.
Catherine Victor was the one who played the actress who played Batwoman.
This has nothing to do with that. But the one in the comics, the problem with her was she was very superfluous. Essentially, it's like, why do we have her? Like, I mean, granted, at the time, Catwoman was kind of a full-blown supervillain, but it's like at the same time, it's like we really don't need her if we have Catwoman. Especially once over time, Catwoman became less of a supervillain and more of kind of
riding the fence on depending on what she was doing.
Yeah. So yeah, there is actually a Batwoman, and Warner Brothers definitely, I could see why they would want to sue over this, but go ahead and continue.
After the suit, I believe there was a settlement at some sort, but anyway, he ended up releasing it initially to theaters entitled She Was a Hippie Vampire.
I like that title a lot. She was a hippie vampire.
I watched this here recently. As you're right, it aired more recently on TV, probably back in the 90s as a episode of Mystery Science 3000, and in watching that, I found more of the two robots and the guy we're talking about in silhouette from the Mystery Science 3000 guys were actually a lot more enjoyable to listen to than the movie was.
Well, like a lot of those movies that they have on there, and this is definitely one of them, a lot of them are unwatchable without them.
Oh, yeah.
There's a couple that aren't. There's a couple that I could, there's one called Egon. I could almost imagine myself enjoying that even without them. I could be wrong, but I kind of like that one.
Yeah.
That one is all right.
I think one of the best lines...
Or Mitchell.
One of the best lines was early on in watching that, and one of the robots with all the girls who were doing the dancing, and one of the robots goes, "Oh, look, 40-pound butts and 30-pound approved pants."
There's a lot of dancing in that movie. Like, isn't the whole point of that they create some serum that makes people dance?
Yes, and at one point they're having this conference. Batwoman is with the evil people, and this woman in the background in a jail cell is basically just dancing for no reason whatsoever. Yeah. It was just horrible acting.
It's a really dumb movie.
But if you're really interested in and must see this, or at least curiosity.
You're not, I was talking to this before the show, you're not that big of a Mystery Science Theater.
No.
Your wife is. Your wife needs to get you into it.
Yeah. The only reason why I'm
actually surprised. You seem like the type that would have seen all of them.
And the only reason why I came across this one is because I was looking up something else for a different podcast, and this poster came up. It said, the world of Batwoman or whatever.
Dude, I love that poster.
And the poster was intriguing, and I thought, okay, this is obviously from something earlier on, and I started investigating it, and that's just how I came across this. So
I gotta tell you, some of these old B movies, it doesn't matter how bad the movie is, the posters are amazing. Like whatever
something the movie studios
high out of his mind guy they did to make these posters was really, really fun.
And if you look at a lot of the old movie posters, even from any of the movies back in the day, that's something I think the studios have lost a little bit, is the artistic ability of making movie posters. It's more Photoshop, drop and go and move on.
I have a friend who does graphic design for a living, and he's really studied the craft quite well, and obviously I don't do it. Just from listening to him, the way he talks about it, whenever I see old posters now, it's really interesting to me because, there wasn't any Photoshop back then, so you really have to imagine them basically cutting these pieces out and putting them together, and you're actually cutting and pasting. It's really kind of neat. It's really interesting when you hear somebody talk about stuff like that. Yeah, this movie was pretty crazy. I'll tell you a movie I saw recently directed by Roger Corman, that Roger Corman was like the king of B movies and is still alive somehow. But he did that 1994 Fantastic Four movie that was never released.
Okay.
But he's done some B movies that are actually really good. And I saw one recently that was just fantastic. It was called Buckets of Blood. And it was made in early 60s, maybe late 50s, but I think early 60s. Early 60s. It would be no later than 61. But I think it might have even been 59. The whole thing was about the beatnik culture. One of the guys, he's not a beatnik, he's an outsider, and they all these other beatniks who are exactly like hipsters of today, just full of their own crap, bunch of rich kids that they're really not artists, but they want to be artists, essentially. All these guys, well, they find somebody who they think is a real artist, and they exploit him, and he's different man and all this, and he's like this busboy, and well, it turns out that he's an artist, but he's also a serial killer, and it's a really fun movie, but it's actually a pretty good movie. But yeah, I don't know why I started talking about that one, but Buckets of Blood, worth watching.
And of course, I found it interesting that the main bad guy in this Batwoman movie was named Ratfink.
Ratfink. Wow, I forgot about that. See, I watched this movie the day that you sent it, and I almost forgot about it until, this was maybe 2 weeks ago, until today, and I was like, oh yeah, that was a really bad movie.
Yes.
But I love that song that they keep singing during Mystery Science Theater. I forget how it goes, but it's every time they start dancing, the robots start singing this stupid song.
Yeah, it's only worth reading
I don't know
once.
how people, I'm sure a lot of people just went to those type of movies to like probably smoke a little pot or make out or something like that back in the 50s and 60s, because those are like unwatchable movies. I mean, it's just like a bunch of people spouting off just the most inane dialogue. Nothing happens. When something does happen, it's incredibly lame. And there's lots of movies like that.
And the movie was so incoherent put together. I mean, and just the nonsense of all of a sudden seeing a beach with the guys playing guitars, dancing, and it's just like nothing going on. Nothing going on. It's like, why?
That's in all of those really bad ones. The one I was talking about was actually a good B movie, but in all of those really bad B movies that Mystery Science Theater makes fun of, there's always a scene where like people start playing guitar on the beach and dancing for some reason. That's in all of them.
Or the one scene where the one girl's tied up with a rope around her neck and the other end's tied to like this coat rack.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And it's like, you could easily just walk away from this, but no, she's standing there struggling with the rope around her neck. It just made no sense at all. Anyway, it's only because the title alone and the poster caught my attention that I even looked into this movie.
Maybe you'll start watching MST3K now. Maybe it'll make a fan out of you.
We'll see about that.
It's not all of them, but it's most of those guys. They do a thing now, and they have for about 7 years or so, called riff tracks now. It's the same people, and what you do is you download a riff track and you play it while you're watching your movie. So you put in like...
It's kind of their way of doing commentary for a movie.
And they do it for all movies, like good movies, bad movies, and like they'll pretty much, even if it's a really good movie, they'll still make fun of it because they're really funny. They're not like sitting there like complaining about it. Like they're making, they're comedians and they're really good at it. Yeah, so you just play it while it's going on, and I've watched their version of Twilight and The Happening with them. I've never seen the originals without riff tracks. I've never seen those movies without riff tracks, and I don't want to. I don't think I could, but they're really funny with riff tracks. Like The Happening, that is a hilarious movie when you add riff tracks to it. I mean, it probably is without. Have you ever seen that one?
No,
that's the M. Night Shyamalan movie with Marky Mark and the plants.
I have not seen that.
Like they're running from the wind, and it's terrible. It's so stupid.
Well, let's move on from the B culture, and let's move on to the Hollywood reboot mode culture. I think everyone's pretty much familiar with Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin, the director-producer duo who done Independence Day and Independence Day Resurgent. They are wanting to reboot their own movie, Stargate.
Okay. Now, you're going to have to familiarize me a little bit with Stargate. I remember when it came out.
It was 1994.
Yeah, I was
It's sci-fi. I don't remember exactly who's in it. The reason why is because when they originally did their first Stargate movie, it ended up being turned into a television show with like 354 episodes of all the different incarnations that they did, which they're not complaining about what was done on TV, but they really wanted to do that Stargate as a trilogy.
Okay.
So they want to revisit that, but they don't want to pick it up the second part 20-some years later.
Right.
They just want to start over again, remake the first one so they can...
Now they only made one movie?
They only made one movie initially.
What about the show? Does that have anything to do with it? Stargate SG-1 or something?
That was all kind of related, kind of going back into the movie, but I never got into the television shows. But anyway, they released a statement saying, at the time that we made it, every single studio in Hollywood had told me that science fiction was dead, and Roland and I really love science fiction, so I think that's partly why it worked and resonated. It wasn't a cynical attempt to try and make something that wasn't crowd-pleasing.
The following quote is, "This one is completely cynical and jumping on the bandwagon."
Yeah. But anyway, they went on to say, it's not a story that can take place 20 years later, so the only way to really tell that trilogy is to go back from the beginning and start the story all over again. It was taken away from us, and even though to have your children raised by other parents, even if they did a very good job, referring back to all the television episodes, for us, it's not putting down what has been done, it's to us finishing telling our story.
Sure.
So they're basically...
I didn't watch either, so
no. And it's been so long since I've seen the original Stargate movie. I know it's got Kurt Russell, the guy who was on Boston. James Spader, thank you very much.
Really?
They're rebooting the movie series for it, and that sounds like their next project they're going to work on after Independence Day Resurgent is fully at the theaters. And in case you're wondering what that female voice was our other guest who will be joining us a little bit later for we're going to talk about towards the end of the podcast. I do believe you have something you'd like to say about the Stargate. So go ahead.
The movie actually was done, it was released in October of 94. It was just a little over 2 hours long. Its budget was just a mere $55 million for a sci-fi fantasy Egyptian archaeological type of a movie, but it brought in a box office of almost $200 million. So it did a very good job.
That is good.
And it is a very good movie. I mean, it's a militaristic type of movie.
I never said it wasn't a bad movie. It's been so long since I've seen it.
For those who have not seen it, which if you've not seen it, then you've been living under a rock for the last
Sorry, I haven't
several
seen it. But it kind of...
Well, then how's your rock?
Well, it's not too bad. But, I mean, it kind of faded into obscurity, though.
It did, but it also...
Because you really don't see it on TV anymore or anything like that.
It still has a fan base at different Comic-Con events, and it deals a lot with Egyptology.
Yeah.
So that's really a faraway place, and there's a gateway that is on a planet far away, some other place in the solar system, and there is a gateway here on Earth that was left, buried, broken up. They put it back together. They get all the chevrons put in place where they're supposed to go, and then this liquid portal opens up. You walk through, and you're just whoosh, taken through. And what it does is it uses the constellations throughout the universe as a pathway to get to the other place. And essentially what it was the people that were considered gods on this other planet, this alien planet, were the people that built up the pyramids.
So it sounds kind of similar to Thor in a way.
Well,
in
yes.
just like the sense that these ancient gods were just aliens.
What they were doing was they were bringing humans through, and they were having the humans do their mining and their work and such like that for them. And then when they had an uprising and they had all this stuff going on, they outlawed reading and writing. And James Spader is there because he is an Egyptologist and he can read old Egyptian text.
Yeah.
And the plan is go through the portal, see what's there, come back and report. Well, they get there, and then when it comes time to redo the chakra so they can be sent back home, it is incomplete. So he has to learn their language and ends up falling in love with one of the locals, and he ends up staying behind. And Kurt Russell is there as the commanding leader, but he's also there with a death wish because his son was killed in a freak accident, and he's there with a death wish. They actually put an atomic bomb through with him, and when the god, quote unquote,
it's Ra, isn't it? In that one,
yeah, that's who it's supposed to be.
I remember
Ra.
that.
And what it is an alien that overtook a human body, and it's a child's body, which is why Kurt Russell cannot just kill him, because he sees this child and thinks, oh goodness, what am I supposed to do? And then he ends up getting his ass kicked by the bad guys. And the guy who is like a security guard for Raw is actually the tying point between the movie and SG-1, because he goes back through the portal on SG-1 and helps them to uncover other things. So even though he dies in the movie, he's brought back, and I cannot remember his name right offhand, but he's been in several movies. So
typical Hollywood, they found a way to resurrect a character for TV.
Oh, of course.
Even though it didn't, they
take off his head and he still comes back. That's what happens.
Yeah, all right.
Anyway,
fair enough.
And for you people who may or not listen to my podcast originally, hey, we've upgraded to a female.
Well, it's about time, Reggie. Yeah, it's about time.
Anyway, moving on. Marvel has released their synopsis for Doctor Strange and Guardians of the Galaxy Vol. Volume 2.
Ooh, be careful with that. Don't, like, I'm not sure if I want to know. Like, how spoilery is it? Is it Doctor Strange fights evil? Because if that's the case, it's fine. Like, oh, really? Wow, he fights a bad guy in this one?
Nothing too spoiler. I mean, at this point, for Doctor Strange, it says Marvel's Doctor Strange follows the story of a talented neurosurgeon, Dr. Stephen Strange, who after a tragic car accident must put ego aside to learn the secrets of a hidden world of mysticism, alternate dimensions. Based in New York City's Greenwich Village, Doctor Strange must act immediately between the real world and what lies beyond, utilizing a vast array of metaphysical abilities and artifacts to protect the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Well, we already knew
that, but yeah,
thanks, guys.
Nothing earth-shattering here.
Copy and paste that for the Netflix synopsis.
Just pretty much.
I'd always wondered what it would be like to be that guy that writes the synopsis on Netflix. Like, some of those are pretty funny. Like, a man falls in love with a piece of cheese and doesn't know what to do. And it's like, wow, like, I kind of want to write this.
They also released Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which is due out on May 5th of 2017, which is after Doctor Strange, set to the backdrop of an awesome mixtape number 2. Marvel Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 continues the team's adventures as they traverse the outer reaches of the cosmos. The Guardians must fight to keep their newfound family together as they unravel mysteries of Peter Quill's true parentage. Old foes become new allies, and fan-favorite characters from the classic comics will come to our heroes' aid as the Marvel Cinematic Universe continues to expand. So they're keeping a few secrets with this one. They're not... Of course, Kurt Russell is in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and the rumor is that he's most likely playing Peter Quill's father, is the rumor.
No.
But no one will confirm that for sure. I guess that's why we'll have to go to the movies to see it. What do you think they're talking about? Old foes become new allies. Someone from the first movie scene, or someone we haven't seen before?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Probably Michael Rooker. I'm sure he's going to team up with Peter
them.
Quill. I always know him as Henry.
These guys wanted to eat you.
Now, have you ever seen Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer?
No, I've not.
He plays Henry Lee Lucas. I don't think I'd recommend it. It's pretty messed up. Like, I've watched it all the way through once, and I've attempted to watch it 3 more times, and that is like the one movie where I'm like, no, I can't do this one. It's pretty messed up. It's a little too realistic for my taste.
And moving on to more...
He was also in Walking Dead. Did you ever watch that show?
I'm not a fan of the Walking Dead show. I'm sorry. I can't get into zombies.
Really. I liked season 1, 2, and 3, and then season 4, I'm like, oh my god, more zombies, and I couldn't get into it anymore. It's not a great show, but it's a decent show. I've just lost interest a long time ago. And when it gets to the point where, like, you've killed off, like, all the best characters, except for, well, no, they didn't, but they killed off a lot of good characters.
And don't forget, at the end of the last season, they killed off an anonymous person that we don't know while they were all sitting in their semicircle while Henry Dean Morgan was sitting there with his Bat Lucille getting ready to beat the crap out of somebody.
So you watch it, apparently. See, I haven't seen it since I watched a couple episodes of season 4, and I really lost interest.
There's a few things that Reggie doesn't know that I watch.
I think your wife knows more stuff than you do, Reggie.
Moving on to our favorite universe we like to pick on, DC and Warner Brothers released the synopsis for the Justice League movie. Mm-hmm. Fueled by his restored faith in humanity and inspired by Superman's selfless act, Bruce Wayne enlists the help of his newfound ally, Diana Prince, to face an even greater enemy. Together, Batman and Wonder Woman work quickly to find and recruit a team of metahumans to stand against this newly awakened threat. But despite the formation of this unprecedented league of heroes, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Cyborg, and The Flash, it may already be too late to save the planet from an assault of catastrophic proportions.
Well, we know it's going to be Darkseid.
Actually, they've confirmed that it's going to be Steppenwolf in this first one now.
Oh, okay. Well, Steppenwolf is a
Darkseid minion.
Gosh. They're starting with...
Yes.
How long do they think people are going to stick with this?
I have no idea.
Like, man.
Yeah.
So they're starting with the minion of Dark, and then the next one's going to be Granny Goodnight or whatever her name is. That's an actual character. It's Granny Goodnight. She's one of... This is when Jack Kirby, like, after he left Marvel, after he left Stan Lee, and he made all these he called them the new gods, all these characters like Darkseid in DC Comics. He went completely insane at this point, and, like, they're nuts. Like, one of Darkseid's top generals is this little old fat lady called Granny Goodnight. And she looks like a little old lady, but she is like as evil as it could be. Like, it's really funny.
It sounds like a character name out of Bond movie, really.
I'm not sure if it's Goodnight. I think it's Goodnight, but it's Granny Good something. It's been a while, but yeah, it's just like, come on, guys, just get to the point.
Well, Deborah Snyder, a producer on the movie, imagine that, wife of Zach Snyder, she's revealed that there will be a prologue in the film that will attempt to get audiences acquainted with, and I don't know if you know what they're talking about here. I'm not sure if I know, with the mother box technology. Do you know what she's talking about in the world of DC?
Kind of remember it, but I don't really remember it.
It's the key technology that everyone is trying to get a hold of in the Justice League is the mother boxes, 3 of which are of particular importance and were left in the hands of the Amazonians, the Atlanteans, and mankind.
Okay.
Whatever the hell all that means. So, I'm guessing it's pieces of something or other all left in different places.
Kind of like an Infinity Gauntlet.
Something like that.
And who knows which came first in the and honestly, like, it's not like anything in the comics is totally original. Like,
they all rip each other off.
There's always some mulligan in something. I mean, if it's not an Infinity Gauntlet or a mother box, it's a white whale, or it's always something or a golden apple or the One Ring or the Triforce, or there's always a mulligan. But it is kind of funny that it's like, come on guys, like, tone it down. But like don't make it too obvious that it's similar stuff. We don't ever really talk about it. I'm not sure if I ever really want to go there, but I'm gonna go there now. Like, Zack Snyder's wife, Deborah Snyder, is one of the big producers at Warner Brothers. There's some nepotism involved there, but I don't know if it's really fair to get into all that. For what it's worth, Zack Snyder, he has a talent of some sort, kind of like a Michael Bay in a way, like, kind of.
Well, because she also, which I don't have written down here, but I was reading, she did confirm that Steppenwolf would be the main bad guy in the first Justice League movie, setting up Darkseid. And there's a deleted scene, which I believe is going to be in the R-rated cut. Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor, who I guess in what they cut out of the theatrical version, talks with Steppenwolf. Zack Snyder was asked about if this was such a big setup towards the Justice League movie, why was it cut out at least of the theatrical part of it? His answer was, that scene, I guess, was our way of, I kind of thought like, would be a cool after credit sequence. But then I was like, I don't want to do that because Marvel does that. So we were like, well, maybe there's another way to do it.
I'm sorry. Every time Zack Snyder quotes, like, he sounds like the biggest dumbass. Like when you listen to him talk, he's like, and I was like, whoa, cool. And they were like, well, maybe not. And I was like, no, totally, man. I just did it too. But if you look at all of his quotes, like, he does that all the time. All his quotes are just so stupid.
He was also asked about if the reaction to the Batman versus Superman whole backlash caught him off guard and has it made him adjust anything with the Justice League movie. And his comment to that was, when Batman v Superman first came out, I was like, wow, okay, woof. It did catch me off guard. I have had to, in my mind, make an adjustment, and maybe it's my hardcore take on the character.
Oh boy.
As far as I love him, I love the material. I do take it really deep. So I think the nice thing about working on Justice League is that it's an opportunity to really blow the doors off the scale the bad guys and team building and all the stuff that I think could justify a big modern comic book movie, if that makes any sense, was his quote.
First off, I was going to make fun of the fact that he
said wolf.
Well, he said a lot of stupid things. Okay, yeah, it's when he says, it's my hardcore take on the character. Like, shut up. And that was originally going to be what I was going to make fun of him. But the real coup de grace behind this, that's just, like, fascinating, is how after he talks about how he was taken aback by the fan reaction, from what I understand, his remedy for the backlash, his remedy for this movie is to do what he did with this movie, except
ramp it up
more. Yeah. like you really don't get this, do you?
I really hope for the Justice League movie and for Warner Brothers and DC in general that he doesn't put out a theatrical version and then before it's released says, oh, by by the way, we'll have an extended cut coming out on home video, when it's released. Because, put out the movie you want to put out and put it to theaters and let it ride on that. Don't give a completely different version and take on it on home video like he's done with Batman versus Superman.
That's a really good point, Reggie. Although I got to point out, that is the least of my concerns about this movie right now.
I mean, you don't see Marvel doing that crap of
No.
putting out a theatrical version and then turning around on home video going, oh, well, here's a completely different cut of the movie.
No.
It's like whatever they put out the theater is what you get on home video, and it's either take it or leave it.
And what's interesting about that is, a couple of those movies could have done better with a director's cut. Like, I know that a lot of stuff was cut out of Iron Man 2. A lot of stuff involved Mickey Rourke's character. They cut a lot of that out for time because they wanted to focus more on the S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff in Iron Man 2. And, a director's cut of that would be very interesting. Also, like, given Joss Whedon's big crybaby fit, the
first Avengers movie?
No, the second Avengers movie,
Ultron.
That movie is long, but you can tell, like, they still had to cut out a lot of stuff in that movie, and you can kind of tell with that one. But at the same time, it's like, nope, they're not doing the director's cut. They're leaving it as is, but then they'll do something like, if something was a little off on, on some of those movies, Iron Man 2 or Age of Ultron, which are great movies, but if there's something a little off about them, in the next movie, they'll address it. They did that with Winter Soldier did that for Iron Man 2, and then Civil War did this for Age of Ultron. And, some of the stuff that you might have missed, we'll talk about it right now. And, oh, wow, like, okay, yeah, that
in a very subtle way,
up.
In a very subtle way, they kind of caught you up and cleared it up at the same time.
Like, and they've done a very good job of that. I mean, because, like, remember Winter Soldier, they're like, why was Gary Shyland such an asshole? It's like, well, he was a Nazi. Oh, of course.
Of course. And just because you love Zach Snyder quotes, he was also asked about the tone of Justice League, and if anything, because of Batman v Superman, it would be different between it and Man of Steel with the Justice League. And this is good too. He said, I think I'm obsessed with the tone in the movies. Tone has always been the main thing that I go after with a movie, and I really wanted the tone of the three movies to be different chapters and not be the same note that you strike, like, okay, there's this again. I really want that. I do believe that since Batman v Superman came out and we've wrapped our heels around what Justice League would be, I do think that the tone has because of what fans have said, and now the movie was received by some, is that we have kind of put the screws to what we thought the tone would be and crushed it a little bit further. Yeah, I have no clue. I have no clue.
You know what? For his sake, well, not for his sake, but for everyone's sake, I hope the next one is a good movie.
And it sounds like in the previous podcast, we've done but bash Warner Brothers, DC, and Zack Snyder. And it's not necessarily we're bashing the DC universe. We want a good DC universe.
Of course, but it hasn't happened yet.
But Zack Snyder's making it very difficult for us to support it at this point in time.
Yeah, he's definitely the main offender, although you got to give a round of applause for Warner Brothers executives for Warner Brothers.
They're sticking with him.
So bad at this. Yeah.
I mean, they're sticking with him. I mean, they've not come out publicly saying, he has to do well in this movie or he's out. They haven't come out and undermining him.
Can you imagine if, like, you look at Marvel and, when they started, they had some really great, well-known directors, such as Joss Whedon and Iron Man, what's his name?
Jon Favreau
and Kenneth Branagh and all these others.
And I thought he did an excellent job with the first Thor movie.
Oh, I did too. And you have all these guys, but they're like, okay, like, after a while, though, we gotta either let you go or just let you be a producer because this is a collective.
They want fresh blood.
Yeah, this is not going to be your thing. This is a collective. Can you imagine if, whereas DC, like, they've really got everything on Zack Snyder's plate. I know there's other directors, but I mean, he's still producing those movies. Can you imagine if Marvel had done that with, like, Jon Favreau or Joss Whedon? Can you imagine, like, every movie would be nothing but Buffy-style jokes if Joss Whedon did all of them?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It would get really old after a while. It would be like bippity-bippity-boo. And
a serious moment. Oh, a joke.
Yeah. I mean, I've watched every Joss Whedon show, and it's a lot of fun until it gets old. And then when it gets old, you're like, just stop it. Please. I do want to point out one more thing, though. How messed up is it that this movie wasn't very good? Since this movie has come out, we have had a great superhero movie, a decent superhero movie in X-Men, and
before
Deadpool on Blu-ray now. We've had, like, plenty of time to cleanse our palate, but for some reason they keep putting this crap in the news and reminding us, hey, there's bad stuff going on in DC. SeaWorld. And like, thanks a lot.
I know we talked before in previous podcasts, yours or mine, that J.K. Simmons was joining the cast of the Justice League movie.
Yeah.
And have you seen the pictures of him getting buffed up?
Yeah, and by the way, it's easy to say that, Zack Snyder's ruining Jim Gordon with his juiced up testosterone-ness that he puts into everything, but no, he's not just ruining Jim Gordon. He's ruining J.K. Simmons, who's a goddamn national treasure. Like, thanks a lot, Snyder.
Well, see, what I understand, J.K. Simmons posted those things on social
what
media.
What sort of cop gets that buff? Like he's a detective.
A commissioner, no less. He's a desk jockey in a certain sense.
Jeez.
Well, not only that, J.K. Simmons is the one that does the "We Are Farmers." Bum, ba, bum, bum,
Do you know what else he does? He does the yellow M&M.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
And the red M&M is voiced by Billy West.
Ah, cool.
Have you seen the movie Lady Killers?
No,
With
but I've
Tom
been meaning
Hanks?
to. Yeah,
Tom
I hear
Hanks,
it's pretty good,
J.K.
yeah.
Simmons
Yeah.
is like the demolitions
like
experts.
2000.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
been a long while, but
Yeah.
it's funny, it's dark, comical, and he's got a girlfriend, wilderness girl, that or
Yeah.
something like that. It's all about robbing this boat casino in Mississippi or something like around the lines of that. And he plays great because he blows off part of his hand and he's like, well, that's just what happens when you don't let go of it soon enough. And the old lady that owns the house, because she's got an old-fashioned root cellar that's just all dirt and mud, and everybody that is in this crew has their own job, and his is demolition, and all he seems to do is blow off body parts.
Fun.
Yeah.
Fun.
So
another actor that I think we may or may not have touched on before, but I'm not sure, William Dafoe, and I think you may have made mention of it, that he was joining the Justice League.
I can't believe it. It's like, let's just bring in everyone from Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Let's call Kirsten Dunst and James Franco and Tobey
But
Maguire.
anyway-
yeah, what's
while we're
Tobey
at it.
Maguire doing these days?
But anyway,
Put on this movie.
the man who played the Green Goblin will now be playing a character from the DC universe. He will be taking on the role of Nudius Vulko, Vulko. The character was introduced in 1967's Brave and the Bold number 72, is the storied scientific advisor to Atlantis, one of the most notorious political figures in Atlantean society, and a long-running supporting character in the Aquaman comics. Vulko is a key player in Atlantis, a venerated academic and politician who comes from a generation before Aquaman's, a fact that will be reflected in the character's on-screen design. William Dafoe's version of this will appear in full Atlantean getup, but the character has been and will be redesigned for the film rather than the comic book traditional balding beard look. Dafoe's incarnation will be scruffy with long silver hair.
May I just say personally, as a woman, for all women, whoever may listen to this, that the words Willem Dafoe and any form of nude should not be used in the same sentence.
See, I actually disagree. I think they should be used together in every sentence.
No. He is just so wrinkly. He's like an old piece of leather that's been left out in the rain and then allowed to dry.
Stop it. You're getting me frisky.
Under a cow patty.
Anyway, details of William Dafoe's character role in the Justice League film are being kept under wraps and has not been confirmed if he will actually appear in the Aquaman movie.
I kind of remember this character. I read a little bit of Aquaman in the 90s when his hand got cut off or bitten off or something. I don't remember.
But yeah, it seems like, anyway, DC is trying to add anybody and everybody they can.
What's incredible is we're getting half the cast from Spider-Man
In the Justice League.
And it's like, you do realize that there are a lot of actors out there. And I love both Willem Dafoe and J.K. Like, they are two of my favorite actors. But it's like, you guys know, like, there are other actors. You don't have to recycle these Spider-Man guys.
No.
That's crazy.
No. Sticking with the DC universe, if it's all right with you, Ben Affleck has also given an update on his solo Batman movie, which is probably more fun to talk about than Zach Snyder.
Oh, it's all fun to talk about.
Yeah, women are fine hearing his name and the word nude in the same sentence.
Ew, gross.
Along with Matt Damon.
Oh, God.
You mean together?
Ooh.
Why not? They were
How
in a
much of
suit.
this are you going to edit out later?
Why not? They were in a suit together going into Jimmy Kimmel after.
Now you're talking. Yeah.
Affleck was asked about the status of his solo solo Batman movie, which we all know he's going to star in and most likely direct, which is pretty much a given. He said, I think they have a date for it, although I don't know if I would necessarily be able to make that date because I don't have a script that's ready yet. So that's my timetable, is I'm not going to make a movie until there's a script that I think is good, because I've been on the end of the things when you make movies, when you have a script that's not good yet and it doesn't pan out. I wonder if he's referring to Daredevil.
or Batman versus Superman.
Or whatever. Anyway, he says, I have a script. We're still working on it. I'm not happy enough with it yet to actually go out there and make a Batman movie for which I have the highest of standards. I would say that something that would have to pass a very high bar for me. It's just not like, yeah, this might be fun. Let's go try this out.
You know, I'm not sure. Batman versus Superman might actually be better than Daredevil. Well, Daredevil might be better.
If this is the case, then I applaud Affleck for, even if Warner Brothers does have a date set for wanting to release this Batman movie, it sounds like, you know, unless he's got a script that he's happy with, he's not moving forward on it, regardless of what Warner Brothers wants.
He's on crisis control right now, is what it is.
Yeah.
I don't blame him.
If he actually is going to be the director of this movie plus star in it, I don't blame him one bit for not wanting to move forward with it until he's happy with whatever it is he's going to direct off of, because I think we made mention before, he's been burned once on a superhero gig. He's not wanting to get burned twice. You can't say, I would say blame him, and if he got burned again, he's liable not to ever to return to a superhero character or even a superhero movie, even if it wasn't the main character himself. I just think he would be gun shy at that point. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, probably.
So easy to make.
Meanwhile, Matt Damon's going back to his Jason Bourne stuff.
Yeah, that looks like it might be good. Although they only released really one trailer and then a lot of TV spots, but that's all they've ever released of it so far.
That's probably all you need.
And with Paul Greengrass returning to direct, I'm sure you probably know what you're going to get. I mean, typical Jason Bourne stuff. Although it is interesting to see Tommy Lee Jones in there as kind of what I would assume is the bad guy.
I'll have to rewatch the old ones, honestly.
We're going to move on here. Anton Yelchin. For you and I think we most know him as Chekhov in the new Star Trek films. Obviously, it's no big secret that he passed away on June 19th from his Jeep, rolling back in the driveway, pitting him against his gate and his brick mailbox, killing him. I know when I posted the picture about that, everything, you were like, damn.
Yeah.
Kind of surprising, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, well, it's a horrible way to die. It's shocking. Here's what we have on, this is from People magazine. What it says is, and I've been kind of following this a little bit, that the car was a 2015 Jeep Grand Cherokee, the same model that Fiat Chrysler recalled in April after the vehicle was investigated by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration for gear shift design. So basically, 2014 and 15 models of the Jeep Grand Cherokee manufactured between July 16th, 2012 and December 22nd, 2015 were recalled by the company after the NHTSA issued a report stating the vehicle's gear shift design made it difficult to tell what gear the vehicle was in. And that pretty much sounds like that's what happened here.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen any of the news reports, but I guess that gear shift works where when you shift it, you press the button on the side to move it, and you pull it back, and you have to watch the light move to whatever gear it goes in, and then it goes back to its normal position. And if you're not looking to see where that light is actually at, you're not sure. You're assuming it's in the right gear, and it could not be in the right gear. And I'm guessing that's probably what happened to him. He thought he had it in park.
Oh, yeah, it was in neutral,
and then it rolled back on him.
It's horrible.
Yeah, it's very horrible.
Well, and, I got to say, like, even though this is after the recall, this is still going to be a PR nightmare for Chrysler. Their saving grace is that this happened after the recall. It was already public, but still, that's going to be really, really hard for them to get out of this one. I mean, it's bad enough when somebody dies due to an automotive engineering flaw, but when it's a celebrity, I'm not think it's going to be
everything is magnified.
Yeah, I think it's going to be real tough for them.
And everything is just picked over with a fine-tooth comb and a magnifying glass, because they know that there is money behind those lawyers that for wrongful death suits and what he could have made being as young as he was. And
he had a young acting career. He got started at age 11 with his first appearance on an episode of ER.
Really?
He also appeared in other television shows as Curb Your Enthusiasm, NYPD Blue, Huff, Criminal Minds, Law and Order Criminal Intent. And this was all before he ever hit it big for the most part in the movies.
He was also in the Steven Spielberg show Taken that was on air for several years. He was a regular on that show as well.
He was also, before he got the role of Chekhov, he also appeared in the movies Along Came a Spider, Alpha Dog, Hearts, and Atlantis.
He was in Along Came a Spider?
Yes.
I think it's a very
He would have been
role.
a little kid.
I will elaborate on that.
Hearts and Atlantis, Charlie Bartlett. Of course, he landed the role for the 2009 movie reboot of Star Trek as Pavel Chekhov. After that first Star Trek movie, he also appeared in Terminator Salvation as Kyle Reese.
I remember that. Yeah.
And also, of course, Star Trek Into Darkness. Now, of course, Star Trek Beyond comes out in July. I believe it's July 22nd when it's released nationally. Obviously, that film has already been done and in the can. But you will see him in four other movies that were either in post-production or completely done. One is called Rememory. Another is We Don't Belong Here, Porto, and then Thoroughbred are the four movies that he has some sort of role in that are waiting to be released at some point. In 2011, he was asked by StarTrek.com if he thought his version of Chekhov was a bridge to the one played by Walter Koenig. And this was when he was talking about when Into Darkness was getting ready to come out. And he said, I don't know if it builds to Walter Chekhov, that if we make more films, then suddenly it totally becomes that guy. I just think that I've tried to capture as close as possible all of the great qualities that Walter brought to his Chekhov. So I hope there is a continuity. I don't know if it's necessarily an evolution, but I hope there's a continuity where you can say, oh yeah, I buy that person being at that age.
Yeah.
And I thought he did the role of Chekhov pretty well.
I did too. I liked him a lot, actually.
And as you were saying before we started this recording of all the main characters in the new Star Trek films, he's probably the least used, although we don't know exactly what kind of a role he's got in Beyond.
He was, even in the old ones, he was probably the least used out of all the main ones, aside from like that nurse that's always around Bones.
Yeah.
But,
I don't know where the Star Trek community goes from here as far as Paramount. I mean, you would assume you'd have to recast the character if they did a fourth movie with a newer cast.
This is a tragedy, but before this, sounds like they were having some problems with Star Trek.
I think the bigger issue with Star Trek has come from the hardcore fans. There was also some chatter going on because CBS is obviously putting out a new Star Trek series that's going to be airing on CBS All Access online only, and the whole hubbub there was, were they going to set it in basically the Abrams universe of Star Trek or put it back into the original timeline that we're all used to? And it came out where they're putting it back into the original timeline and leaving the new timeline for the movies. Which is smart,
yeah.
Which I think, because they're setting it between the end of Star Trek VI, Undiscovered Country, and sometime before the Next Generation show, which is I'm perfectly fine with.
And these new timelines, they're for more of us popcorn people that are new to Star. Like I'm fairly new to Star Trek, and I'm new to it because of the movie that came out in 2009. And
I think leaving the new timeline just for the movies for right now, I think is a good way of just leaving a clean slate for Paramount to do the movies.
They do have a problem with J.J. Abrams doing the new Star Wars, and since J.J. Abrams' Star Trek always felt like a Star Wars movie, they do have that issue of, they're really similar now, and they might have to be like, okay, we're going to be more Star Trek now that Star Wars is out, to differentiate it. Or, of course, that could also hurt them, too, so it's hard to say.
Well, Simon Pegg, he wrote the script for this new one coming out, Beyond, and him and Justin Lin decided that they wanted to try and get Star Trek back to what Star Trek felt like.
Yeah, but wasn't there a lot of reshoots? And Simon Pegg was pretty upset from what I read.
He was upset because the way Paramount put out the initial teaser trailer for the movie made it look like a Fast and Furious thing.
I thought it was weird.
Because Justin Lin had done
Fast and Furious.
Had done some Fast and Furious movies, and he wasn't pleased with what they did because he said it was giving the movie the look and feel wrong tone type of movie that he did not write. That's what I thought
when I saw the trailer. I was like, yeah, that's what I thought. I agree with you.
He's come out and said that once you see the movie, you understand that first teaser trailer has nothing to do with the kind of feel and tone of the movie.
They were just marketing on the fact that it
was also a song that, if you remember right from the first 2009, was a song that was being played at one point with the Kirk character, and it was kind of
sabotage.
It was Paramount had done it in that way for whatever reasons they had, but I think it came across wrong and didn't set well with others.
It was kind of weird. Even I like Beastie Boys a lot, but it's still kind of weird
to see it in a Star Trek.
It was even kind of weird in the first movie, but for some reason I didn't mind it. But it's like, okay, we did did this once. We don't need to do it again.
Again.
Isn't the joke behind it isn't it something like William Shatner can't say sabotage or something?
I don't know.
He says sabotage or
I don't know.
something stupid. I know when they went to the Nazi planet, he kept calling them Nazis. By the way, that show like cracks me up because it's like they go to all these planets and it just looks like 20th century Earth.
Right.
There's the Nazi planet. There's like the cowboy planet. And then there's like the New York mob planet.
Yeah, I
like,
think that's
really,
yeah.
guys. That was like, okay, fine. Nazi planet, I get it. But the New York mob planet, it's like, you guys, this is stupid. I mean, it was a funny episode, but it's like, this is really stupid. I'm sorry.
We're going to get to some of his lesser known movies because you and I only really know them from the bigger Star Trek. And
Susan's actually more familiar with him,
right.
I believe.
But a couple of his co-stars from Star Trek put out thing on social media after his tragic accident. Carl Urban put on his Twitter page, "I can't believe it. I'm freaking hurting bad." John Cho plays Sulu in the new movies. "I loved Anton Yelchin so much. He was a true artist, curious, beautiful, courageous. He was a great pal and a great son. I'm in ruins." Paramount also said, "All of us at Paramount join in the world mourning the ultimate passing of Anton Yelchin as a member of the Star Trek family. He was beloved by so many and he will be missed by all." I really think the most poetic one was released by Zachary Quinto, Spock. "Our dear friend, our comrade, our Anton, one of the most open and intellectually curious people I have ever had the pleasure to know. So enormously talented and generous of heart, wise beyond his years, and gone before his time. All love and strength to his family at this impossible time of grief." Obviously, his passing was caught his co-stars off guard by tons. And when I saw it, I was at work and happened to see it come across the wire, and I took a double take at it myself. So I was kind of shocked. He is known for, I want to say, I don't know what the right word is, but he's done some other movies that aren't necessarily high profile, high budget type of movie like Star Trek is. So our third guest that you've already heard, Susan, she's seen a lot of these movies that you and I haven't seen, and she's going to touch on these movies briefly here. What was some of your favorite movies of his?
The word you were looking for earlier is he was big in the independent movie type of movies in the respect of he had several movies that were done by big studios, Universal, Disney Pictures, such like that. But he did a lot of independent movies. One of the movies you didn't mention that's actually going to be coming out here soon, as in on DVD, and is currently where you can pre-purchase it on iTunes, is Green Room. And
that's co-stars Patrick Stewart, I believe.
Yes,
right?
and it's actually caught my interest because of that fact. It's almost like the basis of the movie is Anton Yelchin. I do not know what his character's name is right offhand. I have not gotten that far.
Oh, that's fine.
But he is part of a band who played a gig at this place. And Patrick Stewart is the bad guy, and the band witnesses some kind of criminal activity that's going on, should not be witnessed by anyone. Patrick Stewart sees this and locks them in the green room. Well, while they're waiting to die, basically, they decide, okay, we're not going to take this and we're going to get ourselves out of here. And that's when heads start getting bashed in and people start rolling around, and it really looks interesting because it's a thriller. It's got some psychological aspects to it, which a lot of his independent movies do.
I know you like a remake of Fright Night.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that in a little bit. I've made a list of some of his movies up to that point, and it won't take very long. It looks bigger than what it really is, which,
What she said.
And in this case, yes, she said it. When he was younger, and as you said, he did a lot of television work. What you didn't mention was that he was from St. Petersburg. That's where he was born, and his family, his mother and father were Russian, and they were skaters.
Can you imagine him in those figure skating outfits on the ice?
Actually, yeah, I can.
You can? Okay.
Yeah.
He
looks like a figure skater.
He
does.
His family immigrated over to the United States
shortly after his birth.
Thank you. At 6 months old. And rumor has it that when he was a baby, not too long after they were brought over, some woman came up and said, "Oh, your baby is beautiful and will become a star." Because Anton could not skate, even with two professional skaters as parents, they got him into acting classes as a young little tyke. And he started out in commercials, and then he got into little roles, as you said, in here and there. And as he got a little older, got into more serious roles on television with SVU, where he actually played a guy who was a young man who daydreamed about doing bad things to women and eventually did.
He doesn't seem like the type.
That's the point. So you cast somebody that doesn't seem like that type of person to be that kind of person. He's the boy next door. And I should mention, for those of you who are into the Star Trek and the new version of Star Trek, Anton did not adopt his parents' Russian accent. He had to be taught by...
Yeah, I did read that, where he had to learn how to kind of sound like a Russian when he took on Chekhov.
He had to actually really enunciate everything that he said in order to sound Russian.
He really did a good job, though.
So,
he made it very...
Oh, he made it his own.
Convincing.
He truly did. He made it his own. Anyways.
We just had a power surge for a minute.
Yeah, it's like
weird.
I'm talking about him, and then poof, lights flicker off and on. Hi, Anton. How you
We
doing?
ought to just have a seance and bring him back.
First movie that I want to talk a little bit about is Hearts in Atlantis. This was one of his first movies where he had a decent sized role. There were other movies before this, but this was his first movie where he had a big actor to play against, and that being Sir Anthony Hopkins. And this movie is loosely based on Stephen King's book by the same name, Hearts in Atlantis. Yelchin plays Bobby Garfield as an 11-year-old boy who is befriended by Anthony Hopkins' character, who is essentially on the run from these people called Low Men. Lowmen, which is the same as it is in the book. They are after him because Hopkins has psychic and telekinetic powers, which he can use on people, and he can get people to do things. He can get people to harm themselves or other people with no memory of it. He can read their minds. He can, there's all these different things that he can do. And Yelchin is, as the 11-year-old child, is the flashback of Bobby Garfield when he is an older adult. So that is what that movie is about. And it is a pretty good movie. It has action in it, and it has a lot of the thrill that you would expect in something from Stephen King.
Okay. What's the next one on your list?
Next one on my list is something you've already mentioned, Along Came a Spider. He is not... I know that, James, you were surprised to hear that he was even in this movie.
Yeah, I've seen that movie, yeah.
And he has a small role. What it is Along Came a Spider was released in 2001, and it is the sequel to the movie Kiss the Girls from 1997.
Okay, I did actually know that. Okay, yeah.
Yelchin played the son of the Russian president who is in jeopardy. The son is in jeopardy of being kidnapped by a man who is obsessed with committing the crime of the century. Morgan Freeman reprises his role as Alex Cross, and the main person that you deal with as a child is Yelchin's best friend in school, who is an American girl, and she is kidnapped in order to get to him.
Okay, that's right.
So kidnap the best friend and then figure out how they communicate with one another, because this is the beginning of the internet, and they send these little text messages back and forth through pictures. As I said,
I remember the big twist in that movie.
Yes, and for those who have not seen it, spoiler alert, cover your ears. It is actually Morgan Freeman's partner who is the bad guy, or I should say bad woman. She is the mastermind of the whole thing. It is a twisty movie. Monica Potter is the bad gal.
Really? Monica
Yes.
Potter. Wasn't she the one who played the wife of in Con Air? I believe so.
Yes.
Yes.
She's good and she's bad.
And cute, too, at one point. So next on your list?
Next on my list, this one I don't know a lot about, but I do know that it is based on an actual true story. And where Yelchin comes into play on this is his character is the victim in this true story. It's based on the true story of the kidnapping and murder of Nicholas Markowitz.
There's the last name for you. Markowitz.
Yeah, I had to actually spell it out just so I could pronounce it. This was released in around 2000. And the role, as I said, that Yelchin plays is he's the victim. And he's kidnapped and tortured. And I know that there's drugs that are involved and gangs. And there is a huge, extensive cast in this movie, including people such as Emily Hirsch, Justin Timberlake, which this was one of his first movies, Sharon Stone, and Bruce Willis.
Wow, that's a pretty big cast.
I'm sorry, I messed up. The actual killing of Nicholas Markowitz was in 2000. The movie was released in January of 2007. But it was actually based on a true story, though, and it is kind of sad. And there are still people in jail for this particular crime. Continuing on with 2007, we move on to Charlie Bartlett, and this one is a little more of a teenager type of movie. It's been described as a Ferris Bueller-ish type of a movie, where Yelchin played the title character of Charlie Bartlett as a teenager who starts dispensing therapeutic advice and prescription drugs, essentially, to the student body at his new school, and he became popular with his students. His dad was put in jail for reasons that I do not remember from the movie. But anyways, it also stars Robert Downey Jr. as the school's alcoholic principal.
Huh.
And
I wonder if that's a little foreshadowing.
I was going to say, not much of a stretch.
2011 was a very busy year for Yelchin, and he was in such movies as Like Crazy, You and I, The Beaver, which is not like Leave It to Beaver, but had Mel Gibson in it.
It sounds like something else, but we won't go there.
Yeah. And also
This is an X-rated, this is a bit of an R-rated show.
what you get when you mix men and women.
Jeez.
So we've got Like Crazy, You and I, The Beaver, and The Smurfs, and he plays Clumsy Smurf in the Smurfs movies. Now that is
A voice.
It's a voice, yes.
Voiceover role.
Yes, it is. But
Now, is he the Smurf that falls down a lot?
he's Clumsy Smurf. So I'm guessing he falls, he drops, he, trips, and...
Okay.
He's the blue one.
Yeah, he's the blue one with the white hat and white pants. You can't miss him.
You know who else is in the movie? Or one of the Smurfs movie anyway? David Cross. He plays the bad guy. I guess,
Hank Azaria is
No,
the...
David Cross is in the Chipmunks movie. Never mind. Sorry.
I know one of your favorite movies of his.
Fright Night.
Is Fright Night.
I am just coming up to that because that also was released in 2011. But that deserved its own little bit of talking rather than just mashing together a bunch of movies he was in. And, there's other movies he was in around the same time, just little bits here and there with movie 43 and New York, I Love You, which were little vignettes mashed up into a movie. But Fright Night, one of my favorite movies, brought out in 2011. It is a remake of the original Fright Night, and which I do not recall who played his character in the original Fright Night. I'm sure I could find out real fast.
Do you know who played the...
It's been too long since I've seen it. It's been like 4 years since I've seen the original.
Ah, okay.
So, in this version of Fright Night, Anton Yelchin plays Charlie Brewster, who lives with his mother, who is played by Toni Collette, and she is a real estate agent trying to sell houses and such around where her house is. The house by them has been empty for quite some time, and in moves Jerry. Jerry seems like a nice enough guy, and it turns out Jerry is like a vampire. Not just any vampire, but he's the vampire from Jaws, he's the Jaws of vampires, is what one of the characters describes him as. The freaking shark from Jaws. Christopher Mintz-Plotz is the one who says that, who is eventually turned into undead vampire as well at one point. Colin Farrell in this particular version of the movie plays Jerry. David Tennant is Peter Vincent, and if I am not mistaken, this was David Tennant's first full American movie.
Really?
Yeah. Now, they did some...
And for those who may not be familiar, David Tennant was the 10th Doctor on Doctor Who, but that's another podcast.
If you have seen the new Fright Night and you were paying attention, there is a scene where Jerry is chasing after them down a desert highway, and he hits them in the back, knocks out their taillights, pulls out in front, makes them stop, hits them in the front, and out of nowhere comes a car, slams into the back of the van, and out comes, who do you think? But Chris Sarandon, who played the original Jerry in the original Fright Night.
You know, I didn't even know there was a new Fright Night. I didn't even know there
See,
was
I've seen her watch this Fright Night before, but I always thought, I didn't know it was a remake until she said something to me.
Oh, you didn't even know there was an old one.
I didn't even know there was an old one, so this is...
There we go.
So it was all new to me, so...
Yeah, I've seen the old one. I've never seen the new one.
Go ahead,
The new
continue.
one is awesome. It really
check
is.
it out.
It's really good. It actually has decent reviews on...
So, of all the Anton Yelchin movies that you have seen, other than Star Trek, what would you say was your favorite?
My favorites are definitely Fright Night and Odd Thomas. Odd Thomas is one of those movies where you have to keep an open mind with it. He is a clairvoyant who can see the dead, who helps bring them tries to help bring them some peace. He helps them move on. He solves their crimes, and this also stars Willem Dafoe with it. He is the chief of police, and this did not do very well at the box office. It wasn't until it came out on Blu-ray, DVD, and other such platforms that it really started getting a following. And it's based also loosely on the novel written by Dean Koontz of the same name, Odd Thomas. And there is an entire list of Odd Thomas books. There's Fairly Odd, Brother Odd. There's at least 4 or 5 books. And
So they could have very easily turned that into a franchise if they really would have
well,
wanted to.
they, as I said, it was loosely based on the books, so it's not like a scene-for-scene thing, because when you do something from a book and put it onto film, you can't have exactly what you want.
Most books other than, I would probably say the Harry Potter books are always loosely based on whatever the book was. There's never really been a true following of any book. Would you agree there, James?
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings? Because I know J.K. Rowling's, she was pretty stipulative about how her Harry Potter books were turned into movies.
Lord of the Rings was like pretty close. Anything that didn't, in the books that didn't make it into the movie, made it into the Hobbit movies for some reason.
I think we've discussed before the Hobbit movies really could have been done in 2 movies instead of 3, and it would have been
done in 1 movie, honestly. It's the shortest book. But yeah, like, I mean, I don't know. I've still only seen the first one. I'm going to have to watch them.
Going back to Odd Thomas, there's a lot of twists and turns in it because you don't know who's alive and who's dead. I mean, obviously you see somebody, their arm is severed, and the guy that played Emotep from the Mummy movies.
Arnold Vosloo?
Yes,
Vosloo?
he
How do you pronounce his last
is
name?
a ghost.
I was thinking Boris Karloff.
No.
That was wrong.
Way too far back on Mummy. We're talking Brendan Fraser Mummy. He actually is in this movie for a very brief moment, and he is a ghost that is haunting Tire World for whatever reason. And his arm has been severed and he's dead, so what he does is he takes his arm and like sticks his finger up his nose and tries to get Odd to laugh or whatever, because it's like Odd says that he doesn't understand why the dead are just don't be dead, and why they try to get a laugh even though they know they're dead. You know, he said that's the most pathetic kind of ghost that there is in his eyes. There are also these creatures that are essentially from hell, and they are called Bodaks. I don't know how that's spelled. It's just Bodaks. And they come directly from hell, and the main point of this is Odd sees all of these Bodaks following this one guy that he eventually calls Fungus Bob, because the guy's got a big yellow patch on top of his brown hair. It looks like a yellow yarmulke, as his girlfriend says. And all these Bodaks are just following him around. And his girlfriend, who goes by the name of Stormy, knows that he can see these creatures, knows he can see the dead, and they thrive on carnage. And all of these Bodaks, as he says in the movie, say, while he's at his job as a short order cook, that occasionally you will see one, maybe two Bodaks over several months' time. But this guy has hundreds crawling over him. And then they just scatter. He ends up going to the guy's place after following him because he knows where there's Bodaks, there are big problems coming ahead. With that many, it could be the apocalypse for all he knows. Well, it turns out this guy wants to be a mass murderer and has chosen April 15th for the date for it to be.
Tax day. Perfect.
There you go. It turns out this guy is part of a group which have tattooed on different parts of their body POD, which he later realizes stands for Prince of Darkness. Well, he doesn't realize it until it's too late, and then he realizes what's happened after Fungus Bob is killed and found in Odd's apartment. So, with the gun, by the way, that was used to shoot Fungus Bob.
Yelchin, he definitely varied his movie choices from small independent to the big blockbusters like Star Trek. He definitely sounded like he did what he wanted to do, and he just didn't stay with the, quote, pop icon type of roles of big movies.
Great in any of the movies he was in. With the, as you said, with the big budget movies, with the Star Trek, with the Terminator, and then also with Fright Night, which was a big budget movie.
I don't think it did as well at the theater.
It did not do it very well in the theater, no. But it was, for what it was, being a remake, it was a fairly big budget movie with, I mean, yes, they used a lot. Basically, they used real-time effects rather than doing a lot of digital stuff.
Yeah.
But, you know, he's going to be sorely missed because
very much so.
There are so many other things that he could have made, he would have made, and that he should have been able to make. And, I mean, granted, every life is precious, but this man was irreplaceable.
On that sad and somber note, James, any last thoughts on what we talked about?
No, not really. I think that pretty much covers everything.
Thanks to my special guest, Susan.
I would like to say that it has been a privilege and an honor to be on your show here, Reggie, today. I know normally I get to hear it just online.
Thank James as well.
No, don't. It's always a privilege and an honor to be on your show.
Anyway, thank you all for coming on. As always, you can find me at reggiestake.com, my Facebook page, YouTube, SoundCloud, and also follow me on Twitter at Reggie's Take. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk at you next time.